Hey everybody, John here, your host on the Prepared Mind channel. Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about consequences. All right, here we are. Right now, storm clouds are rolling in. Thunderheads, can hear them. So hopefully we get a couple cracks and snaps for you guys' benefit. But definitely got some boomers coming in. Hopefully I don't get rained out. But I want to talk about consequences. Right? When circumstances in life get just right, when you get a little bit of this mixed in with some of that, you got some conflict going on, what do you get? You get thunderheads. The consequences of that, right? Lightning strikes, boom, thunder and lightning, all kinds of crazy shit. Tons of rain, hailstorms. Those are the consequences of the intermingling of different forces. I couldn't resist doing that analogy. So I want to talk about other consequences that are going on. Right? The calm before the storm. Remember when Trump mentioned that months ago? Right? Right now it's calm. But there's a storm coming. There's a storm coming right here. I want to talk about some consequences. You see, when people fuck up, when people make mistakes, and by the way, I'm in one hell of a good mood. When people make mistakes, a price has to be paid for it. I was having a discussion with a friend who's a girl, and she didn't quite understand that. She said, forgive and forget. I said, no, men fight, punch each other, and when everything's done, then they can go get a beer and talk about it. But there has to be a real consequence. That's why men are better behaved, and they stay the fuck out of people's business. Women like to mingle, and she even admitted, she goes, oh yeah, women, they get in each other's lives and cause drama and screw around because they don't have to suffer any real consequences. Not the way two guys fighting is. So, back to the subject of prepping, shit hits the fan and consequences. We've got people doing things, very bad things. And you see, they're in a position of power. And they've taken advantage of that condition. I'm talking about the deep state, the dark state. They have been abusing people the way the Obama administration literally used the IRS as a punishing tool for someone else. The way the banking system has used their power and influence to keep Congress at bay, to keep the American people as stupid as possible through propaganda. They've used their power and influence over the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. They've used it. Why? How? To get their way. What is the consequence of that? Well, the initial consequence is that they've duped the American people and they've robbed the American people. But they've also robbed from the entire nation, the government itself. There's going to be a consequence for that. And that kind of consequence is on a national level, an international level. Right? Everything has a consequence, and it kind of reminds me of something when I was in the military, when I was a Marine, we had, let's just say, religious advisors. And he said, John, when things get screwed up, somebody has to pay the price. Something has to die. Right? And he was talking about God's rules. When you screw up, right, someone has to pay. You have to know. Every human has to know there's a consequence. So don't do bad things, in other words, right? Don't sin, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat, don't murder, don't use fraud, don't coerce people, don't use extortion, don't use blackmail, don't bribe. All of the don'ts in the world. Don't bear false witness, right? Don't covet thy neighbor's wife, because there's a consequence for everything. Obama used the power of the government to maintain his power. Right? He used the IRS as a strong arm. Everyone in the government, unless they're a good employee of the people, they are a abuser of the people. We've seen enough of this. We've heard enough of this. We've had the complaints. It's the way it is now, because everyone thinks that when you're in power, there are no consequences. There are. People will remember. So one of the things I like to say is, when shit hits the fan, stay away from other people. Because people are, and I really think they're not the brightest people, but they are mad people. They're going to be out to take a toll, to extract a payment from people. Consequences. Right? There are consequences. The rich people, what are they doing? They're building underground bunkers. They've got a lot more money to throw around. They've got bunkers in other nations. They're going to get out of here because they know a lot of them have abused their power. They've manipulated the system. And they know there are consequences, and they're taking every step they can to avoid them. What's interesting and fascinating, whether you believe in the QAnon information, it's just information, whether it's accurate or not, whether it's more disinformation, it doesn't matter. If you like it or not, whether we like it or not, Trump is doing things. And the bad guys in government are discovering there are consequences for their behavior. And that despite being in power, they can lose that power. And they can be punished for it, and they're going to. And God willing, every one of these people that have committed high crimes, felonies, that have hurt other people, I hope they pay for it. Right? But it has really nothing to do with what I think or what I believe. It has to do with whether or not, right, karma works, whether or not, God's sense of justice works, whether or not Trump is an instrument of the Almighty and he's going to punish the evil and wicked on this planet. There's consequences. But you and I can't do anything about that. But the calm before the storm right now. I'm waiting for another good boomer for you guys. I heard 3 of them. I set the camera up hoping to get some more without getting rained on. Anyways, right, that's going on. We can't do anything about it, you and I. But we can watch. I can certainly learn a lesson. And I learn it all the time. Right? I get taught lessons all the time. Even at the jolly old age of 48, I'm still getting moral and spiritual and legal and professional lessons taught to me constantly. And what I'm finding more and more is I just need to be quiet. I just need to let it go. I don't need to carry chips on my shoulders and worry about it. Now, we've talked a little bit about the national level, right? Obama and Hillary, right? Bill Clinton and Comey, Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch, all these people that are bad, right? Denny Hastert, he got his already. But there's lots of bad guys there. Whether they've stolen, cheated, lied, killed, murdered, whatever their sin, their crime was. Right? They're going to find out what the consequence of that is. We can't do anything about that, but what we can do is realize the world in which we live, the world around us. What are the consequences of things that go on? A friend of mine had someone contact him through Facebook who they didn't want to be contacted with. And they took great offense at that. And somehow it was my fault. And, I defended them or something. I said, no, that's just that person's nature. But, it causes problems. There's consequences for fallout. I know a guy, he was accused by another man of sleeping with that guy's wife. Right? Consequences. I ran into some guy, he did something wrong. I'm not going to mention what it is because it would identify exactly who he is. And I told another friend, he's going to get punched in the nose. If not by me, by someone else, because there's a consequence for bad things. Now, the lesson for us, for me, for you, for everyone is when shit hits the fan, A lot of these consequences are going to come back around and get people. And nobody's perfect, so I'm sure there's people that are going to want to get at me. It's for that reason and several other. I don't want to be around other people when shit hits the fan. I think I've said that a lot. Because there's going to be a lot of stupid going on. And I don't believe vengeance is a good idea. Taking out vengeance on people when they get an opportunity, like when shit hits the fan. It's going to create a mess. It's going to create a whole slew of problems. Right? That's just going to roll downhill, because shit rolls downhill. You know, a mudslide just doesn't, it's not just the hill leaving. It takes shit out along its way. It covers everything in crap. It makes a bigger mess. Right? I want to stay out of that shitstorm. And so that's my idea on this, is consequences. When shit hits the fan, we want to minimize the consequences of not only our current actions, but our past as well. You know, just because people have an opportunity, they're going to take it. The motivation exists. They want vengeance or revenge. They want to get back at somebody. You know, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that person deserves it. Right? It's just someone has something they want to see happen. And for a lot of other people, yeah, they're going to deserve what they get. I don't think it's right that it happens. I don't think it's nice, in other words. But it's going to happen regardless. When shit hits the fan, it's going to be messy. It's going to be nasty. Right? And a cut can become an infection. An infection becomes, or can become, internal, septic. That can cause loss of limb. That can cause loss of life. So what I was trying to illustrate with that is something as simple as a cut can take a life. Not death by 1,000 cuts, but a single cut can cost you your life. Life and limb. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to consequences and getting involved in this sort of stuff. And why avoiding that, and avoiding any situation that could possibly lend an injury to you. You know, maybe you get a cut, no problem. You get an injury, you just can't walk as fast, you can't shoot as well, you can't see as far, whatever your injury is, right? When shit hits the fan, you're going to need all of your faculties, all of your strengths. You're also going to need all of your virtues, the powers of your mind. You're going to need all of that, because there will be consequences. There are going to be consequences for everything everyone does today. It's the calm before the storm. It's calm. Right? But I can feel this stuff brewing. Rudy Giuliani's visiting, right, Mueller, talking, letting him know where the bear shit's in the woods. What else is going on? Right? Emails, texts released. Right? Everything is being turned loose on a national level. These people are going at it. Trump is trying to battle these assholes. There's consequences. And this idea that, you know, there's a mudslide or shit rolls downhill. You bet. When the big guys start punching people, little people get stepped on. You and me are just little people. You know, I've heard this saying a lot by my mother, I think. Discretion's the better part of valor. Yeah, you're an ass kicker. Yeah, you're tough. Yeah, you're prepared. Yeah, you've got your shit together. You know what to do at any given time. But our discretion, our good thinking, right? It's what's going to help us, protect us. You know, we need to keep our wits about ourselves. Right? You could be a dynamite person. You could be a dynamite person. Never, as far as you know, hurt anybody. But you could, by way of accident or chance, you could have offended somebody. You know, I was talking to a friend today, and they said, well, this guy said a certain thing. And again, I can't use examples or I'll get my ass in trouble. Consequences. And I said, that person is going to get their ass kicked. And they go, why? I go, you're not seeing the downstream consequences. because you don't understand the severity of what that person did. Like, what do you mean severity? It was just a little thing. I go, well, that's today. You see, 150 years ago, if you were to call a man a name, say he was a coward or a thief, insult, in other words, if that man wanted, he could challenge you to death, right? It was such a big deal. The consequences for an insult were so huge that it could cost a man his life. He used to fight duels. Duel was a test of manhood, whether or not you were good to your word and that your name meant something. When shit hits the fan, I expect to see a lot of that. I'm not saying it's a good idea. In fact, I think it's a bad idea at this stage of the game, because I don't think that people know how to behave. Not in the real world. We've been living in this fucking fabricated world of stupid, you and I. You know, what do you mean by that, Jan? What do you mean living in a world of stupid? Well, today, people walk around and they think it's okay to dress like an animal with ears and a tail and growl and bark and bite people or scratch or claw, whatever cats do, meow. There's people that think that sort of behavior is okay. That behavior is a symptom of decadence, and it's an aberration of intelligence. When you think you're a dog, you're going to probably meet a dog's fate. You know, people think it's okay that because there's laws to protect them, that they can get away with violating others. And here, I'll just point to the SEC and investing again. People manipulate markets, they manipulate businesses to put themselves in a position to benefit at the expense of others. Because unless you're the one tilling the ground or mining something or creating something with a machine shop or a factory, whether you're growing food, you're not creating anything. What you're getting is a wealth transfer from one person to another. Right? That's wealth transfer. And if it's done fraudulently, right, that is against natural law. There's a consequence for it. So let's just say that, 100 years ago, people thought it was okay to start insulting each other a little bit. And this follows the slippery slope argument to where today you can say whatever the fuck you want to anybody. Right? And there's no consequence, they think. People thought, hey, it's okay to live in a house, right, that's oversized, too big for them, because they think there's no consequence because they can afford it. Well, the consequence is when things go bad, and they do, every 7 years and every 50 years, really bad. Right? And people find out all the time. The reason there's house foreclosures is people don't realize there's a consequence for stupid fucking decisions. You pay for it. But if you add up all of the economic stupidity, all of the financial stupidity, all of the legal stupidity, all of the social stupidity, the consequences eventually come together, right? The negatives of this, when things go bad, then you start to pay for it. And that's this thunderstorm that's starting to roll over my head, quietly forming. It's a mixture of this and a mixture of that. But the mixture of all those things together indicates you're in a bad place, right? Thunder showers, lightning, hail, wind, bad stuff. Shit hitting the fan isn't because everyone was planning really well. Shit won't hit the fan because everyone was financially responsible in their lives. Shit will not hit the fan, right? Because people were more concerned about peace than war. Shit won't hit the fan, right? Because government was responsible. Shit hits the fan because of the opposite of that. Because all they do is plan for and build for war. All they do is steal money from each other on Wall Street, and from you, by the way, every chance they get. But people make up these ridiculous social concepts and ideas, like the LGBTQ movement. Just get back in the fucking closet and do whatever you want on your own time, but don't throw it in our face. Don't tell my kids they have to live with this crap and put up with it. Oh yeah, there's a kid who's one of these furry animal kids, brought a knife to school. took it out, threatened people with it, and even stabbed a few people. Guess how much time he got suspended for? According to my son, who said he saw him do these things or heard about it, right? Same kid dropped the F-bomb in front of the entire class and in front of the school principal or vice principal. Didn't get in trouble for any of it. Why? Because he's a protected class. There's going to be a consequence for that when shit hits the fan. Because when shit hits the fan, folks, we go back to the way it is. The sun comes up, there's no electricity, there's no fuel. It's just you and the world. It's the food you have. It's the water you have. It's the medicine you have. It's the self-defense you have. And you're back to natural law, which is preservation. But all those pressures that built up have consequences. So when shit hits the fan, that furry kid, he's still there. That ridiculous adult that thinks everyone else needs to support them, these entitlement-minded people, they're still there. The guy that made a living out of stealing from other people, whether he's a real thief or whether he's the thief that's sneaky about it, right? Says he's doing you a favor and offers you a service, right? Which is stealing your shit for you. They're still going to exist and shit hits the fan, and they're still going to be out there. The negative consequences of them is that they'll be looking for you. They'll be wanting to continue to live that consequence-free lifestyle in a world full of consequence. Where's your food, dog boy? Right? Where's your water, Mr. Business Suit? They don't have any of that. Right? There's going to be a lot of violence and a lot of vengeance, a lot of people looking for answers. You and I, we're preppers. Right? So we're looking into this a little bit. We need to understand there's consequences for what's going on in Washington. That's out of our hands. It's out of our control. But in that 10-mile radius we live in, there's going to be consequences for all the stupid people out there. So that's why I say, depends on where you live. You live in a city, you're going to have different circumstances, different consequences. You live on the West Coast, there's going to be a lot more, let's just call it fruity stupidity going on. You live in the Midwest, out in the country, you're probably going to be dealing with more down-to-earth people. And it depends on where you live. The hardness of life when all of the fluff and the superfluousness goes away. Right? It's just going to be the sun rises, the sun sets. There's going to be people who every day are going to get more hungry, more desperate, more scared. There's going to be people out there that remember those other people that they've got a problem with. There's a price for it. There's a consequence. The best thing we can do is be prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, a plan. Right? Don't get taken by surprise, in other words. Don't get caught off guard. There's consequences for everything. That's why I recommend minimal contact when shit hits the fan. Stay out of people's way. Right? Don't give them a reason to be mad at you. Right? Minimize contact, minimize exposure, minimize risk, minimize consequence. And always remember that little cut on your finger. That can cost you your arm, right? Your hand, your arm, your life. There are consequences. And when bad things are done, there's a price that must be paid at some point. Some sort of boomerang effect. Right? Some sort of karmic effect. The sin has to be paid for. Right? The sin has to be paid for. I'm really sorry you guys didn't get to hit a boomer, but I think I'm done with this subject. There's a lot of shit going on in Washington, D.C. If you're curious about it, check out all of those great channels. And I want you to remind everybody, watch commercials on other people's videos. Helps pay them a couple pennies here and there. That adds up, helps pay the bills, helps get them prepared, helps reward them a little bit for the hard effort they put into their videos. But I do see a lot what's going on. I'll probably go inside and watch the X-22 report. Maybe I'll go watch the SGT report. Maybe I'll go watch some QAnon stuff. Or maybe I'll sit down, play a game of chess with my son. Read a book. Maybe I'll play a guitar. right? But one thing I'm not going to do is expose myself to more stupid, right? Because there's consequences for it. Doesn't matter how big of a badass you are. Being me doesn't exclude me from getting shot or shot at, right? Just because you know stuff doesn't make you bulletproof. In fact, it may make you a bigger target for other people. So keep your heads low, keep your powder dry. Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed, doll. Talk to you soon.